Hey, listeners, I'm currently on a break so that I can rest, write, and prepare new episodes of the podcast, which will begin airing on Thursday, September 11th, 2025. I am so excited about that episode, which is going to be with Dr. Ingrid Clayton, where we're going to discuss her new book on fawning. It is going to be amazing. Until then, I've curated an encore season of some of the most popular episodes thus far. So, if you're new to the podcast, this summer season is a great place to start. But if you've been around for a while, these episodes are definitely worth a second listen. And I know you're going to get something new out of each and every one of them. And I can't wait to hear what that is. So, be sure to share that in the comments or text the podcast to let me know. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this week's episode. Welcome to Writing Your Resilience, a podcast for writers who want to create stories that change lives, especially their own. I'm your host, Lisa Cooper Ellison. As a writer and trauma-informed writing coach, I'm here to guide you on a transformative journey through the art of writing, self-discovery, and resilience. Each week, I'll share my best tricks, tips, and strategies to help you write more authentically, craft deeper, truer stories, and overcome the common storytelling roadblocks we all face. Together, we'll explore how to bounce back when life gets tough and stay connected to your inner calling. So grab your pen, your notebook, and an open heart. It's time to do the work that changes the world, one story at a time. Tia Levings was referred to me by Jane Friedman in April 2021. As soon as I read the first pages of her memoir, I knew her book would be a hit. But I didn't know I would get a backstage pass where I'd get to watch her story transform, her platform flourish, and her bright light grow as she fully embraced her role as author and guest expert who exposes the abuses in Christian fundamentalism. Her memoir, A Well-Trained Wife, will be released in August 2024 by St. Martin's Press. During this episode, Tia and I took a deep dive into what it takes to write and birth a tough story. Before we get to our interview, I have a few questions for you. What would you need to do to claim your story? What would tell you it has legs? And what work would you need to do to see it from a wider lens? If it's a really tough story, how would you care for yourself as you worked on it? I hope you'll ponder these questions as you listen along. Now, let's get to my conversation with Tia Levings. Have you ever stared at a blank page and thought, I used to love this? If you're burned out, blocked, or just going through the motions with your writing, I've got the solution for you. Free Your Voice, Fuel Your Motivation is a 12-week mindful memoir writing course that helps you reconnect with your creative spark, not by pushing harder, but by being radically gentler with yourself. You'll learn how to regulate your nervous system, tap into your intuitive voice, and build a sustainable, joy-filled writing practice, all while receiving expert feedback from me. Applications for this intimate program open on August 1st, and space is limited. To learn more, see the show notes for this episode or go to lisacooperellison.com/free your voice, find your motivation. Well, hello, Tia Levings. Welcome to the Writing Your Resilience podcast. I am so happy that you're here today.
I'm happy to be here. I'm glad we're finally getting this accomplished this fall. It's been eventful.
It has been quite the fall. Oh my goodness. For both of us. And by the time people listen to this, fall will have passed. But I bet there are lots of listeners out there who have had a tough fall because I've talked to so many people who have had one. And I just want to take a deep breath.
Yes, to be present and understand seasons, how they work. And also, most of us are navigating very full lives in addition to writing. So it's not something that really goes away. It's a skill we have to develop and hold. It's happened before and it will happen again.
Absolutely. And, I wrote about this in my newsletter. We do not write in a vacuum. We write amidst the chaos of our lives. And so figuring out how in the world to do that is so important. And those deep breaths are one of those ways. Well, we have lots to talk about today. And one of the things I'm excited about is to give you an opportunity to just share what you'd like us to know about A Well-Trained Wife, which comes out in how many months now?
Just about 9, where I've been saying we're in the gestational age because now, like, we were in the publishing year, but now we're officially in a pregnancy.
Yeah, and it's already out for pre-order. And
It is.
you had a newsletter that came out just the other day. It popped into my inbox with
Mhm.
you holding copies of your arcs, which was so exciting to see.
I cannot believe that moment still, to hold the whole story in tangible form. I knew it was going to be the first time I got to do that because before it had been, virtual in my computer screen, or I had worked with just segments of it. I had never like held the actual whole thing as it's going to go to print because, I've printed out versions of my manuscript. It was sold on the 13th draft. So I've definitely held it on paper before, but not with the cover and the marketing campaign information in it and the blurbs on it and all the pieces. It was a very abundant and emotional, and I'm really grateful I did not do a live unboxing so that I could have that experience and process it in my own time. Some things were not, for public consumption, and that moment is one of them. It's a big
Good. I
one.
am glad that you thought of that because, this is just my thoughts on marriage. And I probably have thoughts on marriage that are very different than other people, but I've been married twice. And the second time, I just let it be for my husband and I. I was like, we're not inviting a whole bunch of people because
Hmm.
this isn't a show.
Hmm.
This is for us to make a commitment. And, there's a way that unveiling and unboxing your book is the same thing. You are bringing this baby into the world, right? Your creation, and taking time to just hold that and let it be what it is so important.
It felt that way. The metaphor of birth really holds because I had a wave of emotions go through my body that is very similar to what labor felt like. I mean, not the actual pain, and cramping of what my uterus was doing, but I was nauseated. I was shaking. I was crying. I was laughing. I was in disbelief. And I was also like settling and accepting that this happened in my body because I experienced that book. I lived it in private, in solitude, inside, in quiet. And people did
Yeah.
not see what was happening to me. And then when I wrote it for years, it took about 8 years to write this book. Most of that was in solitude, locked in my office, trying to get this done, but nobody, I'm a debut. So like I would say I'm writing a book and they're like, "Oh, that's nice, honey. Like you're that's nice you're writing a book." They didn't have the vision for it that I had. And so to hold the fruition of my vision and to know that I accomplished this and that I didn't underestimate myself and that it's here, it felt very much like a metaphorical baby. Like I made this. I made this happen. This came out of my head. It's been I even last night when I put the photos onto the newsletter, I was like, I can't believe that photo actually happened. And I have an armful of my books. And they're the paperbacks, the hardcovers are coming, but this is the first time I've held it this way.
Well, it was a joy for me to see because I have gotten to be one of the midwives
That's true.
that
We
you
can
have worked
go on.
with, right? So when I saw that, I was like, oh,
Uh,
I know that baby.
You do. That baby sold because of our work together. And it is getting the accolades when people call, when they comment on the structure and the writing and the development, that is a direct reflection of my work with you. And I'm just so grateful that you saw the potential in it and you helped me birth it. You helped me get it there.
I saw it from the very first word. I knew. I told you the whole time. I never said like if you get this published. I'm like when you get this published, when
That's
these
right.
things happened. I knew right away. So we are not going to go blow by blow over your book, but
Yeah.
I'm sure some people have not heard of you and they're like, who is Tia Levings? What is this book that she keeps talking about? So what would you like us to know about the book?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's memoir. It's called The Well-Trained Wife, My Escape from Christian Patriarchy. And it tells the story of how I entered high control religion, ended up in a religious cult, and then escaped from it. It is deeply relatable to anyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s and was even minimally aware of Christianity in America. There will be experiences in its pages that you'll relate to. And my experience, very extreme views manifested in my relationship, and I was in a lot of danger, and the escape was very visceral. And that's the story of the book. Sometimes I refer to it as I lived the prequel to The Handmaid's Tale, if it gives you an idea of the themes of Christian nationalism, suppression and oppression of women, quiverful mentality, and the homeschooling and deeply conservative far right. Those are just some of the themes that are in the story. And today I educate on the abuses in Christian fundamentalism. So that crosses the book itself, but I was also in Shiny Happy People on Amazon, which was about the Duggar family, and Bill Gothard's Institute of Basic Life Principles, which is the IBLP, and the strategy of taking over America. And I also have a column called Anti-Fundamentalist on Substack. And what else do I do? Oh, lots of reels, lots and lots of social media reels that explain what it's really like to live in a fundy home.
Yes, and if you ever want to know, just go to her Instagram and watch those reels, and you will learn so much. And, as a person who got to read early drafts of this book, it's been interesting to see how so many things that you wrote about appear in the news, like out in the world. And I'm
Yes,
like, holy snap, there it is, there it is. So, I would say this is a book people need to read, right? If you really want to understand what's going on out in the world, this is not just your story. Any good
correct.
memoir is your personal experience as it speaks to something happening out in the world. And I can definitely say that your book does. And I think the timing of when it's going to come out is going to really clarify how those things work together. And, there's things happening in the news right now that speak directly to these issues. I mean, all you have to do is just turn on whatever your favorite news program is and you will see them.
Hmm.
So there's so much that we could talk about in that area, but I want to talk today about the transformation that happened inside you as you were writing this, because this podcast is about how writing transforms you, that transformative process, and I got to watch it happen, right? So you've talked before about how this book started as really a journal, you just journaling this, and then it became a novel that you were writing, and then you have, it morphed into this memoir. How did you know that this was a project? Like, when did it have legs for you?
So I was working, I wanted to write before I wanted to write this story. So I was working on a YA series and short stories, and I was pursuing this goal of being a writer. To that end, I had hired my first writing coach. Jamie Morris was helping me through a YA trilogy that is currently and still sitting at around 80% done. It hasn't really gone anywhere, but we would have the meetings, like we would have these meetings where we would talk about the progress that I had made on the story and what needed to be done next. And it was in one of those calls that I was worked up about something, and I was telling her about what I had been working on the side that had made me not really get to the assignment she had given me for the YA progress. And she could see the fire in it, and she knew that I was actively working on it, and she knew what was happening in the news at the time.
Mm.
And she was like, "You have a story. Like, stop what you're doing, write this story, get it off your chest." And to that point, it had been like files on my computer and notes in my notebooks. I always do my morning pages and journaling in these big 5 subject notebooks, and I was just pouring out my story. I was also in active trauma therapy at the time.
Mhm.
So there's this whole therapeutic angle of the writing process that was part of this. And the point where it became a project, though, is when Jamie said, "Stop what you're doing and write this." And I did. I purged like 60,000 words one week and 60,000 words another week, about 3 weeks later. And it gave me my first vomit draft and got me started on what was then a novel. I had to externalize it first in a novel format. So it sat there for about 5 drafts.
So, for those of you who are listening and not watching, I just was shaking my head. And so you might be thinking, why is she shaking her head? 60,000 words in 1 week. If
Mm.
you don't know anything about word count, that is like 250 pages. Okay.
Yes.
So, how in the world? You must not have slept. Like, how did you get all that done?
No, my fingers flew like fire. I did sleep. I slept and I ate. I don't think I got up to go to the bathroom very often, but I closed my door and I just poured the sequence of the story out, and I just got the whole thing off my chest. And to my surprise, it pretty much did fit into a an arc, because
Mm.
it is a structured story, and there is a character arc already kind of evident in my life. So as I poured it out, it really did feel like a catharsis and a vomit draft. I don't call them shitty first drafts. I call them discovery drafts or vomit drafts, but it was such a release, I couldn't stop.
And I'm glad you didn't, because there was so much power. And I immediately saw that. And I love that you don't call it the vomit draft. I am not going to be able to remember who said
Mhm.
this. So I'm sure someone will tell me. And if you are a person who knows, please do tell me, because I always like to attribute things to people. But someone was saying that, we always talk about it in terms of the vomit draft or the shitty first draft, which Anne Lamott said. And if you haven't read her piece on that, it is hilarious and I love it.
Mhm.
But someone was writing about how really what we're doing, and it may have been Allison K. Williams, that may be the person who said this, is that we are going to the grocery store and we are putting the ingredients into our cart, right? It's not trash that goes into the cart, it's ingredients. We just haven't made a meal yet. So the
I love
process of
that.
revision is the process of taking all the ingredients and actually making something with it, right?
Mhm.
And that's what that first draft is that you have to have the ingredients put together. So
Mhm.
if you know who said this first, please feel free to let me know. But I do like thinking about it that way, because it honors the hard work that goes into writing the first draft of anything, whether it is something that's in your journal or morning pages, or something you've typed up to be some official draft. It
Mhm.
is valuable.
It's material. You can't like edit a blank page. That's another something somebody said that I can't remember who said it. You can't edit a blank page. So when you have material to work with, and did end up with this big monster, 125,000 words, I had something to cull and rearrange and move around, and most importantly, examine, because some of the things in that draft was the first time I had externalized it to the point to see it on the page. And that act ultimately became one of the maybe top three things I've ever done in my life that helped me
Mm-hmm.
heal, because it got it out.
Yes. If you are feeling like, oh, I have this story and I don't know what to do with it, and whether you want to publish it or not, that doesn't matter, right? It's the holy work of writing memoir or anything that's personal is about how it heals you. That's the part that's sacred. When you get it out on the page, psychologically, you allow the situation to live on the page. And
Mhm.
as you transform it, revise it, change it, have insights about it on the page, it actually changes the story that lives not just in your brain, but in your nervous system.
Mhm. That is very true to my experience. Because I come from a very religious background, I had a lot of magical thinking to unpack and habits to break and wishful thinking and wishing that things were different than they actually were. Also, disassociation from how things actually were. But when you're writing a scene and you're creating a narrative, you have to actually put on the page what happened. Like, you have to delineate, this happened and this happened and then this happened. And it helped me break away from the psychology that I was kind of trapped in of, well, but I don't want it to be that way. Or if I pray harder,
Yeah.
it won't be that way, which was keeping me paralyzed and was keeping
Mm-hmm.
me in abuse. So the big character arc of my life is learning to come into acceptance of what actually happened, and that I can survive it, and that I am okay. It did not destroy me. Like defining that
Mm-hmm.
is what happens on the page.
Yes, absolutely. And for people who have been gaslit in particular, if gaslighting is a part of your experience, and I was listening to something with Dr. Ramani, she's an expert on gaslighting. So if you don't know who she is, you need to look her up. And she was talking about how gaslighting is the purposeful manipulation of your experience. It's not disagreeing with you, it's saying that your experience is wrong. It's not even lying to you. If someone lies to you, you can say that's not good, right?
Mhm.
But it's when they lie to you and then say your experience of that is wrong. Like you're
Yes.
crazy. Something's wrong with you.
And both things happen in religion. They will tell you that how you see it or how you experienced it or view it is sinful. They will also quote scripture to you, like, lean not unto your own understanding is
Mm,
one. constantly thrown back at you. Like if you see it that way or you experiencing that way, then you're wrong. The way you see it is wrong. And your insistence that it is the way that you are, like if you have any defense or momentum that you put towards that, now you're big sinning, capital S sinning, because you're not trusting God and the authority that God has placed over you, which controls you from within. Now you're censoring and policing yourself. And so that's an entirely different battle of escape. Like you can't, there's the external escape, and then there's all these layers of internal escape. And one of them is learning how to hear yourself think, which is a nice side benefit of writing.
Yes,
You
because
can see
that's what you do. Yeah, and that idea that your experience of reality is not real.
it. Hmm.
And not only is it not real, it's wrong. I
Hmm.
mean, that is gaslighting 101, right? That
Yeah.
is, it is. It's gaslighting 101. And so, part of your work has been not just to look at your specific story, which is
Hmm.
very powerful and has a lot of big things that happened in it, but to look at how your story fits into a larger narrative. And
Hmm.
as we were working together doing the revisions, we spent a lot of time looking at your work. And then you were in this coaching group that I was running with several other writers. And then something happened. And that something was the Josh Duggar trial and all of the things around that. And suddenly your story was intersecting with something else. And I watched this change happen in you and also happen in your platform. Like, it was like an internal change that had an external change. Can you talk about that?
Yes, it was like striking the match that for a fire that had been built. Like if you've seen anybody like prepare for a bonfire at night and they start building up all the materials well in advance of the event because it's daytime, you're just building this fire. At night you're going to light the match and set it ablaze. That's what happened. The Josh Duggar story is the much wider lens of what happened to me. I'm nobody, I was just like a little lady in the mountains. I wasn't on TV. My family's not famous. I didn't have as many children. But the Duggar, we're from the same group. We're from the IBLP and we have the same lifestyle. And I knew all along they came on the scene in 2003 when I was very much in the thick of my fundamentalist life. I knew from the get-go what they represented and what they were doing with the proselytizing of that show and what kind of lifestyle evangelism they were hoping to put on the country. And it terrified me then, and it terrified me, in what was that, 2019, 2018, somewhere in there when that happened, because the tendency is to look at this big, beautiful family and think that everything's okay and that it's worth admiring, which is so dangerous for this high control religion and abuse. The abuses that exist in that environment sell soft and they sell through a beautiful aesthetic and they have a very gentle and appealing gateway. And I couldn't. I had by then had done the work enough to have the language that I didn't have in 2003. Of course not, I
Mm-hmm.
was still living it. But by the time I get to this point in the journey, I have a very big fire I've assembled. I have a very established draft. I have a tight beat sheet. I've already queried 27 some agents, which is how I found you because I went to Jane Friedman with why isn't my query selling? I know this story's on fire. And she's like, well, it's probably structure. I'm going to give you Lisa's name. You need to work with Lisa. That's how I got there. So I'd already been doing all this work kind of in a low platform way. And then the trial happened and I had language come out my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that language coming out of my mouth could not have happened without all the work that happened beforehand, in the depths. Those reels, like it was like the first draft, the way it came out of me. And I just very quickly generated a lot of reels about things I never thought I would talk about. I never thought I would say them out loud, let alone on social media. At the same time, Ashley Renard was rising with her reels, and I was learning how to do social media from her. And a bunch of things just came together at once, and supernova, it just blew up really fast.
And so, one of the things I want people to hear is that it can seem on the outside that their success it just happens and they're like a rocket flying into the stratosphere. Like all of a sudden, somebody just lit a fire and boom, that's it. But someone had to build the rocket and the fuel had to be put in there. And you were doing all of that work all of that time. In the same way, like there's tons of bands that, like, all of a sudden they're so famous and you're like, where do they come from? They were working all the time. And
Hmm.
there was something that I noticed that happened as you did those reels and as you began to talk about your story and as you began to get not just success with your platform, but also, getting an agent and going through the process of building the proposal, something else that you and I worked on, and selling your book, there's been a clarity around the
Hmm.
story that has continued to be refined this entire time, and also a way that it's like your purpose has been redefined or refined. And that, at least that's my observation. I don't know what it looks like or feels like inside you, so I'm curious, what is that?
It's a distillation process, and it very much does feel that way inside, because a lot of things, a lot of layers and through lines are coming together at one time. So this piece of my work and this piece of becoming a writer and learning how to
Mm-hmm.
write, everything that entails, is one line of it. My trauma therapy and the personal breakthroughs I've had is another through line. The changes in my personal life with my children all reaching adulthood and I'm no longer active mothering. That's been a really big piece of this. My second husband asking for a divorce because he didn't want to be married to a writer. That has been the last 18 months of large change. Seeing my story depicted on Amazon in the documentary Shiny Happy People, that was a cathartic moment that helps me clarify the actual language I'm using. And then all the writing around the writing. There's so much content around the book, the newsletters, the columns, the podcasts that I'm on, the social media graphics that need good copy, the captions. All of it helps refine the message. All of it helps me get really clear on my boundaries, what I'm
Mm-hmm.
here to say, what my swim lane is, what topics I am not going to cover. And boundaries are an essential part of this work. So there's a lot of clarity that comes through good boundaries. And I have spent a lot of time articulating those in my own life. So I think that shows. I think that's some of that external result that you're seeing.
Yeah, there's two pieces that I want to comment on. One is the boundaries piece. Boundaries are what is okay and what is not okay for me, right? It's not
Mhm.
about changing other people. It's like creating what that fence looks like, right, around you, and deciding what you're going to let in. And people are going to listen to you talk about this and they're going to say, yeah, but Tia can do this because Tia has privilege now and Tia's got, all of these things going on. But the reality is that one of the reasons why you have gotten to this place, it's not the exclusive reason, is
Mhm.
because you were the whole time listening to your body tell you what your yes and your no was, so
Mhm.
that you knew how to be really clear about where you were going.
That's so true. There are times I've made a decision solely based on the fact that it doesn't feel good in my stomach, because I can hear my stomach. Your stomach is your emotional brain, like your vagus nerve is in there. And if there's activity happening in your stomach when something's not landing well, that's information that you should be listening to. And I have spent years listening and learning why that's important and then processing that through my journaling or through my work. And so I consider all of those boundaries I statements. They're all about what I do, what kind of person I am, what kind of spaces I will be in, and I rely on this skill set every single day, multiple times a day, whether it's blocking a troll, knowing who to engage with or who not to, what kind of project I want to sign on for, all of it. Like this, it's essential. I would fear for anybody who stepped into this kind of spotlight without having done that work first.
Yeah, and I think one thing that happens to writers early on who are interested in publishing their work, right?
Hmm.
And this says that you don't even have to be a writer. You could be just someone with a dream. You have this thing you're aspiring to do, and you think, I've got so much to do. And if anybody gives me an opportunity, I have to say yes. I always have to say yes. And then we get into the trap of saying yes too many times, and then we get exhausted and resentful or whatever. But there's also this fear that if I don't say yes, then things are going to be taken away from me. And what I found is that when you can say no and you're clear about why something is a no, and you don't have to explain yourself, no is a complete sentence,
Right?
right? You just have a period, that's it. But when you know why yourself, and you can be really grounded in saying that no, people will still say yes to you.
I believe that one of the benefits of working with you is that you have a trauma background. and you helped me infuse this into my healing. You taught me that I don't want to re-traumatize myself in sharing this work, which helped me. You taught me no is a complete sentence. I think if you, and to people who are listening who have a dream and they want to do something big, make sure you know how to say no. It's
Yes.
more important than the thing that you want to tell. It's more important than the thing you want to pursue. You should know how to say no. You should know how to say yes. You should understand your whys, and you should have all of that articulated so that you're not consumed in the process. I had done therapeutic work to make sure I wasn't further damaged by my trauma. I don't want to give it another day of my life. I don't consider the work I do giving this to my trauma. I will get that criticism sometimes. Someone will say, you just need to let go of the past. This has not got anything to do with the past. This is using the past and my experience of it to reclaim my present and my future and to help other people from not experiencing the same thing that I went through. To me, that's redemption, not
Mm-hmm.
dwelling in the past. So knowing all of that beforehand helps preserve me. It's self-preservation. So it's just as important, if not more, than the book itself and the opportunities that come, the peripheral opportunities that come along for the ride.
Absolutely, because there are plenty of people out there who experience outward success that
Hmm.
don't do this work, and it does not feel successful in the end.
Hmm.
There's fallout, or they're like, oh, this is like a song that I hate, or a thing that I've done that I absolutely hate because I did it for all these commercial reasons, because so and so said I should, or said it was beautiful, or whatever. So it's so easy for those things to happen. And yes, you have to know your no. Knowing
Hmm.
your no, even if the person who gave you this one opportunity says no, someone else will say yes, and it'll be
Hmm.
the right yes.
Hmm.
So keeping track of that's important, and also all of the writing that you're doing around your experience. I think Andre Dubus III said, we write because maybe we know what happened, but we don't know what the hell happened. Talked with Melanie Brooks about this. This is from her book, Writing Hard Stories. And I love that quote. I have used it so many times. And one of the ways we figure out what the hell happened is not just by the writing of our stories, but it's all of that peripheral stuff, right? The writing
Hmm.
around it. That's one of the reasons why an author platform can be so helpful, right? I know so many writers are like, oh, the author platform, I don't want to do it. Shoot, sometimes I feel that way, right? It's extra work and I want to just write. But the reality is that all of the things that you do help you make sense. They provide context and feedback that allow whatever this main thing is that you're doing
Hmm.
to not only have legs, but to have context and to be of service, right? That's how the redemption happens, is through being of service.
I agree. Having a purpose for why you're doing it will help when the paycheck isn't what you expected it to be. Also, the platform angst, because it is angsty sometimes, it is draining, it is hard, it is all those things. One of the pushbacks I get is, well, that's not going to help me sell books. Social media doesn't help you sell books. Well, that's not true. Like I have my whole contract because of what happened on social media
Mm-hmm.
and the opportunities that came from it. It doesn't mean that social media is the best fit for everyone. But if you're looking very narrowly at, will this Instagram post help me sell a book? You are looking too narrowly. If you widen that lens and it's big, 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 big picture, that's part of what the hell happened. What the hell happened is the whole of it, not just one little tiny aspect or one little tiny endeavor. There are times when you have to evaluate if something is worth the time, because like, for example, I don't meet with people for free anymore when they have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of questions. I have office hours and I charge my time, and it's not very much, but it's enough to give them pause of being articulate and clear about what they are
Mm-hmm.
asking. And it puts me a boundary on my time, and it helps me not give something away for free. It's that kind of mindset that helps me pour into a platform that I think ultimately the whole big picture is what's going to help me move books. That's what's going to sell my story, is that I do the peripheral around. I don't want to overuse the word peripheral. I just did it. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
it bother you when you see the same word on the same page twice? It's like, I don't like it in conversation either. I can like almost see it on the transcript of like, oh, we just said peripheral 3 times.
And then we start saying it over and over, and we're like,
Right?
peripheral, peripheral, peripheral. Is that even a
Oh,
word? Does that
does it?
exist?
Anyway, my point is big picture, taking the long view.
Yeah, the long view is, I think, the best way to think about it, because when you take the long view, it's about showing up, right? And
Hmm.
for some people, social media is the place they want to show up. It's authentic to them, it's what works.
Mhm.
For other people, it's not. It's, could be a newsletter. It could be a lot of different things, but it's about you proving to yourself, proving to other people that you show up consistently. And in the process of showing up, figuring things out and developing a story that is beyond you.
And I would say if your reader, please know your reader, please do your market research and know your reader. If your reader uses social media, then you should be there. You have to go where the readers are. If your readers go to live events, go there. If they really like long newsletters and they love like really quiet interaction that goes deep, go there. You should be probably a few places. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, and you never want to give all of your attention to, like, for example, a single social media platform. A lot of people are reeling right now because Twitter is, and that's where they put all their energy. Like, don't do that. Diversify. It's just like any other kind of investment portfolio, but engage with readers is platform. So
Yes.
go where they go.
And the more you know who your reader is, the more you can be of service, right? If you want the work you're doing, whatever that is, to have meaning, knowing who it's for. And,
Hmm.
even just if it's one person, if I could only give this to one person, having a really clear picture of who that is will
Hmm.
tell you so much. And then you can extrapolate out from that place. So you have done all of this work. And now you're in the gestational process, right? You're in the book launch process of getting all of these things done and preparing yourself
Hmm.
for the next stage, because it's not just like you have arrived. You have not arrived. We never arrive.
Oh, right.
But what is it like to claim your story?
It does feel like a pivot. It feels, to borrow from Taylor Swift, like an era, a new era I have stepped into. An interesting thing is that I will have turned 50 next summer. So it feels like this is happening at a wow, 50. Wow, my kids are raised. Wow, I'm single, and like that's a big pivot. A lot of things, like there's a very clear turning in my life happening. But what's interesting in publishing is that it's a product. That book is a product. And so my book has now passed on to the product team. I don't have a lot of say in it anymore. The cover's been designed, it exists. The marketing people are involved, the publicist. I'm so grateful to have a team. It is so amazing to not feel alone in this process anymore. But they're driving it. They tell me
Mhm.
what to do. They tell me what their process is. And so I'm learning as we go. And I'm also, this is where it breaks from the whole gestational analogy, because I have to think about the next kid while I'm still pregnant with this one. Like
Yes.
I'm working on the next books. And you can't just like publish back-to-back memoirs real close together. That's not how that works. So like developing the project that answers the questions that readers will have from this book, that's next. And then hoping to go into fiction. So have that underway. But in addition to that is the sustenance, just sustaining myself of this big thing is happening next year. And this is like a little quiet season that I have
Mhm.
left before that happens. And self-care, getting in what I need to get in. Life is pretty small right now in that I keep things very simple, right down to eating very simple foods, to making sure I get my walks, my water, my self-care in, because I am preparing for this thing that's going to happen, and I'm going to need to be on a lot when that happens. So kind of trying to shore up before that by having just embracing the quiet while I have it.
I've talked with people about this before, that there is a difference between self care and comfort, right?
Mm,
There's going to come a point in this process, because it's going to be intense, right? When you get to
mm,
that, book launch proper process, it's going to be intense because there's going to be a lot of eyes on you. It's going to be a lot of focus, and you're going to get depleted, as anyone would. And
mm,
when we're depleted, what we want is comfort. But
mhm,
the only way that you're going to know what comforts you and also have enough reserve to do that is through self care. And self care is proactive. And what
mhm,
I hear you saying is like, I am building my proactive processes now so
mhm,
that when I get into this, even though there's going to be lots of things that are unpredictable, you know what to fall back on, and you know how to proactively care for yourself to
mhm.
protect the energy that you do have.
Yes, and it points back to that trauma work that I did while I was writing the book. I know these things about myself now because I've already done that work, and now it's just on me to implement them and maintain them. And that can look like making sure I'm scheduling some of these projects apart. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, if I'm filming for one thing, I don't want to do it too close to the time when I record the Audible for my book, because the both are going to be so draining. I'm going to need rest times in between. Or
Yes.
another ask I'm having is that when people want to do something that is going to be draining for me, like filming, that I do it in a city where I have a support system so that I
Hmm.
have a place to land and I can care for my nervous system when we're off hours. It's those kinds of things, like just being aware of my limitations, my needs, and how to care for my soft animal of my body, as Mary Oliver says.
I love that, the soft animal of your body.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you have taught me that you do to care for the soft animal of your body, and I didn't even realize I did this too, but I didn't know how important it was, is when you have to travel, giving yourself time to arrive versus just getting off the plane and heading to wherever.
Well, the plane is part of my story too, because I take boats and trains
That
as
is
much as
true.
I can. I do not like hurling my body through space and time at fast speeds. That's just true.
And that is probably a healthy thing. You know,
Eh,
it is a lot harder on people than they think.
yeah,
You know, you may get someplace quickly, but it doesn't mean that your body has not expended a lot of energy to get there.
which means that you have a recovery period. You have
Mm-hmm.
to have a recovery period. So I have built in anytime I travel, and I did that a lot this year because I basically got on a boat and have been in a suitcase since January. The day that I get somewhere, that's my one job. Be there. Get settled. Don't go out and sightsee. Just be here. And that takes intention when you're planning because
Mm-hmm.
that's probably going to require more time. But my body's just been through a lot and she needs to ground. We need to know where we are. We need to feel where we are.
Yes.
And that's just part of being in the post-traumatic landscape. That's part of how I care for myself.
And it's so important because people who have PTSD, and I don't want to diagnose you, I'll just say I have
No, I have it.
complex, I have
Yeah,
CPTSD, complex PTSD,
exactly.
that our nervous systems are wired for hypervigilance, right? And
Mhm.
so when you are constantly go, 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 going, you are reinforcing the hypervigilant way that your nervous system can operate. Even if you're like, oh, but I do it in this calm, easy way. There is no calm, easy way because your nervous system just it responds to that energy, and I have to constantly like remind myself of that. I'm not saying like I have that all figured out because I don't. I think
Right.
it's a matter of like doing well and then not doing well and going like, oh, yeah, I didn't do that very well. Okay, now I know, like, okay, now I'm going to go back to these other practices I have to go back to the basics. That's what I always say. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, things are out of alignment. I got to go back to the basics. As we begin to wrap up, one of the things that I want to talk about is like you have a really challenging story, right? There was a lot of what I would call high trauma in this story, a lot of
Mhm.
chaos, a lot of abuse, a lot of things where if you're in the middle of them, you would go, why in the world is this happening to me? And if you're reading about it, you're going to go, how in the world could people respond in this way or do these things?
Mhm.
We don't have to talk about what those things are. What I want to talk about is when you got to those parts of your book that were the most difficult, what did you do to make sense of that chaos and to do that work that allowed it to be redemptive?
Yes. Okay. So this is a structural answer. I took every chapter and every scene and I applied a structure modality called the plot clock, which maps the emotional development of a scene. So I have a little tiny craft book I put out about this. I co-wrote it with Jamie Morris and Joyce Sweeney. It's their system. I just helped with the writing. It's the plot structure in a wheel instead of a
Mm-hmm.
line. And so what happened is I had, my discovery draft, I had these scenes laid out and I would take them and in my rearrangement, I would plot them on the plot clock. So I knew
Mm.
where the low point of the scene is and where am I supposed to be turning and changing my mind and where am I coming out and having this big climatic moment. And then important to my chapters, where's the cliffhanger?
Yes.
So that it can keep the whole book moving and the momentum. The other thing that I did parallel to that was you and I worked on this with the situation and the story.
Mm-hmm.
What is the story that is coming out of this situation? It really helped me look at those really hard scenes of like, what do I need the reader to take away from this? What did
Mm-hmm.
I take away from it? And that helped me also decide which scenes should stay and which scenes should go because eventually we edited that down to 80,000. And my editor then gave me a little allowance back, which was so good. But you and I whittled that thing and to pick and choose scenes and to also allow for the development of why this hard scene is here and
Mm-hmm.
and what what brought me to the next step, because it is an arc, it is a progression towards freedom. I needed to see how the scene mapped. I needed to have a plan and a map. It's another reason why I think writing is so helpful, because I was able to finally extrapolate some meaning from some of the really hard things that I went through.
Yes. And I love that you had that. And I'm going to make sure that that resource is in the show notes
Hmm.
because, and I talk about it in terms of emotional beats, right? And
Hmm.
then the cliffhangers, the trouble to come. That's one of the ways that I talk about it. But one thing that can happen to people when they are writing tough stories, and especially when there's a lot of high trauma in a story, is that your nervous system has been wired to see this story in a certain way. And we get stuck into the what happened and how I've been hurt, right? And so then you can
Right.
write and write and write that part of your story, that scene, so that the whole focus is on how I've been hurt. And what that does is it keeps you in a victim mode. And I don't say that in a negative way, right? Victim equals powerless. That's all that means, right? And so you are in a space of powerlessness, when it comes to your story. And a really good story and also a really good life is about finding your power even in the most difficult of situations. Could something still be shitty and wrong and terrible? And if you didn't have to have it happen, you wouldn't? Of course.
Hmm.
You don't have to disown that piece and what I would call bright siding, which is something that is
Right.
like a touch point for me. Like, we're not always just going to look at the bright side, we're going to honor the pain, right? If
Hmm.
something's hard and it hurt, it's painful. And it's like it's hard, it's hurtful, and it's painful. And how did you find your power anyway? How did you
Hmm.
make a decision anyway? How did you survive anyway? Because readers do not want to read something that is like, this happened and it sucked, the end.
Right.
They do not like, because then, if their life is right now, like my life sucks, and then is that the end? Well, what's the purpose of continuing, right? So
Right.
we want to know, how do you continue? How do you figure it out? And that
Hmm.
is part of what you do. And when you do it on the page, you allow yourself to do it in your life.
Hmm. It was an essential piece, and that is why I got extra word count at the end so that I could build that section up more. I had the successful character arc. I did find my power, but I needed a little more word count to show that. And that allowed me to show like how I was pulling that through all along. Sometimes those improvements were subtle and small, and they
Mm-hmm.
just got me to the next day. And that is definitely true. As you watch as you go through the narrative, it's like, oh, sometimes she just got to the next point, or she just
Yes.
was able to doubt or have a thought of her own. And it wasn't like this big, miracle thing. It was just a
Mm-hmm.
series of steps that eventually bring you to that arc. It's important in the healing, it's important in the writing, and it's important in the selling, because when the editor holds your proposal, they're going to want to see that you did not land where you began. And
Exactly.
sometimes they just look real quick at the first paragraph and the last paragraph, see if they're different.
They do that. I mean, it is really like, people are not always reading everything, my friends. So you
No.
have to like really be clear and concise, and it needs to change. And if you're here and you're listening to this and you have lived a hard story, you are here because you are amazing and you are incredible and you have survived.
Hmm.
And the more you look back and you find those seeds of survival, right? It does not have to be some magical thing that happened that suddenly makes it all better, but those seeds of survival, you claim your space, not just as a person who survived, but someone who is thriving,
Hmm.
right? And is doing well. And so, yes, we want to make sure we're always doing that. And that if you have a book proposal, that you show that. That is very important. We've worked on
Is
that.
huge.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is. And it's the proof of concept.
Hmm.
It's the proof of concept. So what is the best piece of writing advice that you have received?
Oh, quit bitching. Sit down.
I love that.
I have no tolerance for people who whine about being writers. You're not forced to write. If you don't want to write, if you would rather complain about it, go do that. But writing takes so much work, and you have to show up in the chair and you have to write. And if it's not very much, then it's not very much. I mean, there's going to be an ebb and a flow. Clearly, I don't have 60,000 word weeks on the regular. An amazing event. That doesn't, I
That
wish it
does
could.
not happen all very
It is
often.
not how it is. Yeah. So and if you want to be successful, it's going to come with all the pieces. You're going to have to push through some hard stuff. You're probably going to have to show up in ways that are challenging. Be real clear on what you want. And if it's not really what you want, there's no shame in that. Just go do something else.
I love that. It's beautiful. And so true, right? Stick with it and don't complain, because complaints, it just takes the energy out of everything, right? Of course, yes, life can be hard, and right, it's always like it is this way,
Both and.
and it's a both and. What are you going to do with it?
Right.
We've talked a lot about how you nurture your resilience. Is there anything else that you would like to say about like your top thing you do to nurture your resilience and keep it intact?
Yeah. I try not to apply an artificial pace.
Hmm.
I know what my goal is, but I don't try to put a timeline on it of when I think it needs to happen because there's so many factors that are out of my control. I don't have any control over external forces. I don't have any control over like aspects of my health. I can't guarantee
Mhm.
myself success. I can't promise myself that something's going to happen. I just know what I want. I'm really, really clear on what I want. And I pace myself accordingly daily. What can I do today? I I think productivity and on all the hacks that you can do to be a more productive person are very helpful. Being disciplined is very helpful, but I am not here. I'm not going to apply capitalism to myself.
Mhm.
I'm not going to allow myself to be consumed by this process. My first and foremost loyalty is to me. So yeah, just no artificial pace.
I love that, because the only guarantee we have is whether or not we show up, right? That's the only
Right.
thing we have control over. And I know you and I have talked about Deep Work. It was a book that you introduced me to, which I love.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just about showing up, but the quality we
Hmm.
bring to our showing up. Are we coming distracted and all over the place with other people's agendas in our minds, or are we coming with clarity?
Hmm.
And that's what I hear, is you coming with clarity.
Yeah.
So your book is going to come out soon.
Mhm.
Of course, we've
Yeah.
talked about the pictures. If someone wants to pre order your book now, how can
Hmm.
they do that? And where is the best place to reach you? Kind of find you out on the world.
Everywhere on all the social media platforms, I'm at Tia Levings Writer. You can order my book anywhere books are sold. The Audible is also available for pre-order. And just come find me and come chat. TiaLevings.com, and Instagram is where I am the most frequently. My DMs are open and I love to hear from people.
And what I would say about her Instagram is that if you want to learn about how fundamentalism operates in our world, check it out for that reason. If you're an author and you're like, I want to see how someone clearly speaks about their topic, that's another reason to go. And then also, she just does awesome things, and Tia's an awesome person. So you
Thank you.
should learn as much as you can about her and connect. I think that's the
Yeah.
best thing I can say.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just me. We'll have fun. Come sit at my table.
Well, and that's the most important thing, is you are just you. And you know, for anyone who has experienced a lot of trauma, just being you is the victory, right?
Hmm.
That's the goal and the victory. And it has been just a joy to watch all of these things happen and for all of who you are to blossom. And so thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about this week's guest, please see the show notes for this episode. But before you go, I would love it if you would text the show if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or leave a comment on YouTube letting me know your biggest takeaway for this episode or what you loved most about it. And speaking of your comments, I want to thank each and every one of you for the comments that you have shared thus far and the ways that you've reached out to me through email, my Substack, and all of the different ways that you have to connect with me. It has been such an honor to get your feedback and to hear what you love about the podcast. Thank you so, so, so much. I look forward to engaging with it more in the future. And listeners, if you haven't had a chance to connect with me or to share something about the podcast, I would love to hear from you too. Until next time, please remember that your story matters. And as you work on it, you change lives, especially your own. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly couldn't do this podcast without your support. If you love this episode, here are 3 simple ways you can keep this show thriving. 1, subscribe or follow Writing and Resilience on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube so you never miss an episode. 2, leave a 5-star review to help others discover the podcast. 3, join my engaged writing community by signing up for the Writing and Resilience newsletter. As a thank you, you'll receive a free copy of Write More, Fret Less, a toolkit for gaslight proofing your writing practice. Have feedback for the show, a topic you'd love me to cover, or questions you'd like me to answer? Drop a comment on YouTube, text the show, or email me at writingyourresiliencepodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, keep writing, keep growing, and keep showing up for yourself. Your story matters, and I am so proud to be writing alongside you.